Monica Reed had scrubbed enough mansions to know the drill. Stay invisible, keep your head down, and never let your teenage daughter roam into locked rooms. But when 13-year-old Lila saw that painting, everything shifted. The portrait showed a boy clutching a tiny wooden sailboat, his eyes hauntingly familiar. Lila's breath snagged because she knew that gaze. It belonged to Noah, the quiet kid from the group home who'd vanished. She turned toward billionaire Victor Langford and whispered, "Sir, this boy lived with me at the children's home." His face drained of color, fingers trembling, and everyone sensed something impossible was clawing its way to the surface. Because the boy in that gilt frame, Lucas Langford, had supposedly been dead for 11 years. The morning that started it all, Monica pulled her battered Honda into the service entrance of Langford Estate. Heart already tight. She'd been cleaning here for half a year, long enough to memorize rules, not long enough to feel safe. The mansion towered above them, pale stone and endless windows, the kind of place that shrank ordinary people. Today was different. Lila sat beside her, backpack hugged tight against her chest, eyes wide as they swept over manicured lawns and marble fountains. "Remember what I told you," Monica said, shutting off the engine carefully. "You stay in the staff kitchen. You don't touch anything. You do not wander. Got it?" Lila's face, older than her years, turned solemn. "Yes, Mom." A burst pipe had closed school early, leaving Monica cornered. She hated bringing Lila here, hated mixing her gritty real life with this polished world. But leaving her alone in their cramped apartment felt worse. They stepped through the service door, shoes tapping on gleaming marble. The kitchen already buzzed, clattering pans, humming refrigerators, overlapping voices. Head housekeeper Mrs. Caro looked up from her clipboard, thin lips pinching. "Mrs. Reed, I wasn't informed you'd be bringing company." Her gaze landed on Lila's scuffed sneakers. "Emergency, ma'am," Monica answered quickly. "School let out early. She'll stay in the kitchen. She won't cause trouble." Mrs. Caro's pale eyes flicked over Lila's worn jeans and patched jacket like they were stains on silver. "See that she doesn't. Mr. Langford despises disruptions." "Yes, ma'am." As Mrs. Caro swept away, a younger maid, Jenna, leaned toward another woman, whispering. Lila caught the phrase, "the maid's kid," and felt heat rush into her cheeks. She'd heard worse before. Growing up the way she had, you learned to let certain words slide off like rain. Still, they stung. Monica settled her at a corner table with a book and a granola bar. "I'll check on you every hour. If you need anything, ask Anna." She gestured toward the older cook, who gave Lila a kind smile. "We'll be fine," Lila said, though her voice wobbled just slightly. Monica squeezed her shoulder and disappeared into the main house. For nearly an hour, Lila obeyed. She read, nibbled her snack, watched the staff weave around each other like they'd rehearsed the choreography for years. Eventually, curiosity, the same stubborn trait that had gotten her in trouble at the group home, started itching. Lila slipped out of the kitchen when Anna turned away, following distant voices through a corridor lined with expensive art. The interior was even more ridiculous than the outside. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, ceilings rising high enough to swallow echoes. Thick carpets hushed her footsteps. Everything glowed like dust had never dared land there. She passed a sitting room where maids polished silver. Conversations died as she stepped in view, their eyes following her with the same tight disdain as Mrs. Caro's. Outsider, someone who didn't belong. Lila kept moving. She drifted deeper, from one immaculate room to another, spaces designed purely to display wealth. Then she heard Mrs. Caro's clipped voice echoing ahead. "I don't care about your excuse. The East Wing is absolutely restricted. No exceptions. Mr. Langford has been very clear." Lila peeked around the corner and saw Mrs. Caro scolding a young maintenance worker. Behind them, double doors with electronic locks and a small ceiling camera guarded the hallway. The East Wing. A shiver skittered down Lila's spine. What needed that level of security in a private home? She ducked back before anyone saw her and slipped down a quieter hallway, this one lined with portraits. Somber faces in old-fashioned clothes watched her from ornate frames. At the far end, warm lamplight spilled from an open doorway. Lila edged closer and peeked inside, her fingers brushing the doorframe as she leaned. It was a study. Shelves crammed with books from floor to ceiling, a massive desk, a fireplace large enough for several people to sit inside. Unlike the museum-like rooms before, this space looked genuinely lived in. Papers lay scattered across the desk beside a half-finished cup of coffee and abandoned reading glasses. On the far wall, above the mantel, hung the portrait. Lila felt herself pulled toward it like a tide. The painting showed a boy, maybe 9, in an uncomfortable navy suit. Dark hair neatly combed, expression serious. But his eyes, though stopped, her cold. The boy cradled a small wooden sailboat painted white and blue. Every tiny detail of the boat was rendered perfectly. Lila's chest tightened. "Noah," she breathed. "Impossible." The kid in the painting looked rich, polished. Nothing like the boy with second-hand clothes and bitten fingernails from Riverside Haven. Yet the eyes, the way his head tilted when thinking hard, the protective curl of his fingers around the boat, she knew all of it. Lila's fingertips brushed the frame, heart pounding like fists against a door. She'd lived at Riverside Haven almost a year after her dad died, before Monica managed to pull things together. There'd been a boy there, quiet and brilliant, who drew ships non-stop. He'd never shared his real name. The kids called him Noah because that's what he scribbled on his drawings sometimes. He'd arrived in the middle of the night and left just as mysteriously weeks later. Lila had been one of the few he trusted. They tapped messages through thin walls after lights out, soft secret patterns. She'd taught him checkers. He'd shown her how to fold paper into tiny boats that actually floated. But Noah was always frightened, always glancing over his shoulder. His nightmares were the worst. Cold water, dark spaces, gasping for breath. His eyes had carried the same deep sadness as the painted boy. Lila's hand lingered on the frame. "It can't be him," she whispered. "What exactly do you think you're doing in here?" The voice cracked like thunder. Lila spun around, yanking her hand away from the portrait. A tall man in a dark suit stood in the doorway, formidable. His hair was silvering at the temples, his face marked with the lines of someone used to responsibility, to carrying heavy things. Victor Langford. She'd seen his photo in the staff break room, but pictures hadn't captured this. He radiated intensity. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean... How did you get in here?" His voice stayed cool, controlled. "Where's your mother?" "She's working, sir. I'm Lila Reed. I didn't touch anything. I was just what? Exploring places that aren't yours?" He stepped inside, gaze flicking to the portrait, pain flashing across his features before he buried it. Lila's fear twisted into something else, an old, stubborn instinct to speak up. She turned back to the painting, pointing with a trembling hand. "Sir, this boy used to live with me at Riverside Haven. Everyone called him Noah." Silence slammed into the room like a door. Lila heard vacuuming distantly. She watched Victor's face drain of color. His grip tightened on the edge of the desk, knuckles turning a stark white. His mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. Then, barely audible, "That's impossible." "I know it sounds insane, but I'm telling the truth," Lila rushed on. 2 years ago at Riverside Haven, he stayed there. Quiet, crazy smart, obsessed with boats. He even had a little wooden one, just like that. She pointed at the painted sailboat. Victor's legs seemed to fold beneath him. He sank into his chair, still clutching the desk. "This is my son, Lucas Langford," he said. "He died 11 years ago." "But, sir—" "He died," Victor repeated, voice cracking. "There was an accident on the water. He was 9. They found bits of the boat." The words strangled off, his throat working like he couldn't swallow them. "I'm not lying," Lila insisted, eyes burning. "Noah was maybe 11 when I met him. He woke screaming almost every night about drowning, about cold water and someone pushing him under. Staff had to calm him constantly." Victor's head snapped up. "What?" He was scared all the time but wouldn't say why. He just kept saying his dad promised to find him, that his father was coming. Lila's voice dropped. "I remembered because mine wasn't. My dad was already gone. I knew he wasn't coming back." But Noah believed. The door burst open. Monica rushed in, face panicked. "Lila, oh my God. I'm so sorry, Mr. Langford. She was supposed to stay put. I don't know how she slipped away." "Mrs. Reed." Victor raised a hand, cutting her off. His tone had gone strange, hollow. "Take your daughter, please." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." Monica grabbed Lila's arm, pulling her toward the door. "I'm so sorry. It won't happen again." As they hurried out, Lila heard Victor whisper to the portrait, so soft she almost missed it. "Then who did I bury?" The question followed her all the way outside. It clung to her during the silent drive home, through the kitchen where staff stared, into their car, onto the cracked city streets. Something enormous was shifting, something buried for a decade and finally shaking loose. 3 days crawled by after Lila stood in that study and said the words that shouldn't exist. 3 days since she watched a billionaire's calm mask fracture like glass over deep water. Monica hadn't taken her back to the estate, scrambling for other childcare whenever she worked. The silence from Langford Manor roared louder than any confrontation. Monica moved around their tiny apartment like a machine, saying only essentials. Lila sat with homework spread out but barely touched. Her pencil rested uselessly in her hand. "Mom," she finally asked, "are you going to lose your job?" Monica's hands froze in the dishwater, shoulders sagging. "I don't know, honey. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have wandered. I shouldn't have said anything." "No." Monica dried her hands and sat across from her, expression softening. "You told the truth. Never apologize for that." She inhaled. "Tell me everything about Noah again. Every detail. Don't skip." So Lila did. She described Riverside Haven, cramped rooms, thin blankets. How Noah arrived late at night about 2 years earlier, brought by adults who never explained anything. How he left, returned, then vanished again. He drew constantly, boats on stormy seas, harbors, sleek ships with detailed rigging. He had this toy, Lila said, tracing invisible lines on the table. A wooden sailboat he kept in his pocket like treasure. The paint was chipped, faded, white and blue with a little red stripe along the bottom. Monica's breath hitched. What did you say? White and blue, red stripe. Lord, have mercy, Monica whispered, standing abruptly, pacing to the window. That's exactly the boat in that painting. I dust that study weekly. I've stared at that portrait 100 times. That boy, those eyes, that boat clutched like it's the only thing keeping him afloat. And you're telling me you knew him, lived beside him. I'm not making it up. I know. Monica met her gaze. That's what scares me. The next morning, Monica went to work alone, stomach twisted. The moment she stepped into the staff kitchen, conversations faltered. People pretended interest in mugs and cleaning supplies rather than meeting her eyes. Mrs. Caro appeared in the doorway, clipboard hugged to her chest like armor. Mrs. Reed, a word. Monica followed her into a cramped office. The door closed with deliberate care. Let me be perfectly clear, Mrs. Caro began, voice low and tight. Mr. Langford has endured unimaginable tragedy. He lost his son. He spent years learning to live with that loss. Your daughter's little performance, wild claims and cruel fantasies, was inappropriate. My daughter told the truth about what she experienced. Did she? Mrs. Caro's eyes glinted. Or did she seek attention? Maybe she saw a sad painting and spun a story to feel important, to attach herself to the Langford name. Heat flared in Monica's chest. Lila is not a liar. Then she's confused. Either way, silence would be wise. Keep her away from this house and keep her mouth shut about this nonsense. Mr. Langford has moved on. We won't let a child's fantasies disturb this home. Something in the woman's tone made Monica's instincts prickle sharply. The speech felt rehearsed, like she'd prepared it days ago. Is that all? Monica asked quietly. That's all. Return to your duties. Monica spent the morning changing linens upstairs, mind spinning. Wealthy homes had patterns, secrets, cover stories, cleanup. She'd seen fragile truths swept under rugs that cost more than her yearly salary. But this felt calculated, orchestrated. While tucking fresh sheets in the blue room, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She nearly ignored it, thumb hovering. Mrs. Reed. The male voice sounded formal, unfamiliar. Yes? This is Daniel, Mr. Langford's assistant. He'd like to speak with you in his study at 2 this afternoon. Please be punctual. The call ended before she could answer. At precisely 2, Monica knocked on the study door, the same room where everything had cracked 3 days earlier. Victor sat behind his desk, but he looked smaller somehow, thinner, weighed down. Papers littered the surface, old photos, official documents, envelopes with seals. His eyes were red-rimmed, sleepless. Sit, please, he said. Monica obeyed, hands folded, spine straight. Years of dealing with powerful clients had trained her not to show fear. Victor slid a photograph toward her. A boy, maybe 8, grinning at the camera in swim trunks. Gap-toothed, smile bright. Sand dusted his feet as he held a boogie board. That's Lucas, Victor said. We called him Luke. This was 6 months before he died. Monica's chest tightened, same face as the portrait, same bone structure Lila had described. I need you to tell me everything your daughter told you, Victor said. Every detail about this Noah. I need to know if she's certain. Mr. Langford, please, please, he repeated, voice fraying. I need to know. So Monica recounted Lila's memories. Victor's face cycled through horror, hope, disbelief, and raw, aching longing. When she finished, He opened a drawer, pulling out more photos. Did Lila mention any other distinguishing features? She said he had a little scar above his right eyebrow. Victor's hand trembled as he slid another picture forward, a close-up of young Luke, a thin scar cutting through his right eyebrow. He got that when he was 5, Victor murmured. Fell off his bike, 3 stitches. Monica swallowed. What are you thinking? I'm thinking my son's body was never recovered, Victor said. The coffin we buried contained only items from the wreckage. For 11 years, I believed what I was told. I never questioned it. And now your daughter suggests my son might still be alive. The words hung between them, too enormous. The boy at Riverside, Monica said slowly. Lila said he repeated something. She remembered because it hurt. What did he say? He said his dad was coming, that his father promised to find him. Victor's hand flew to his chest, pressing hard. For a moment, Monica thought he might collapse. He grabbed his phone with shaking fingers. I need to make a call, he said. Please don't leave. I'll need to speak with you again, and your daughter. Is she home? Yes, with a neighbor. Bring her. I need to ask her questions myself. I need to see. He didn't finish, but Monica understood. He needed to look in Lila's eyes. I'll bring her, she said quietly. But if she's wrong, if this is coincidence, then nothing changes, he said. I'll still be the man who buried an empty box. But if she's right, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. When Monica returned with Lila, the study thrummed with new purpose. Another man waited, mid-50s, silver hair, suit expensive but understated. He stood and shook Monica's hand. Patrick Hayes, I'm a private investigator. I worked Luke's case 11 years ago. Lila hovered beside her mother, eyes flicking between the men, shoulders tense. Victor gestured to the sofa. Please sit, Lila. We want to ask some questions about the boy you knew. Okay? Yes, sir, she said softly. For the next hour, Victor and Patrick questioned her gently but thoroughly. They showed photos of Luke at different ages. Lila pointed out his lopsided smile, the way he cocked his head when concentrating. They showed early drawings Luke had made, boats and harbors, and Lila nodded quickly. Noah drew exactly like that. He always added little flags, always drew birds in the sky. Did he talk about family? Patrick asked, pen-scratching. Not much. He was scared to. Once I asked why he was there if his dad was coming. He said someone told him his father didn't want him anymore, but he didn't believe it. He insisted it wasn't true. Victor made a broken sound, like air punched from his lungs. He turned away to the window. His shoulders shook once, violently. Patrick cleared his throat. Lila, do you remember the last time you saw Noah? How he left? It was late, she said. I heard voices in the hallway and peeked out. I saw him being led away by a woman in a gray uniform, like a nurse. He was crying, holding his boat. He looked back and said, she paused, remembering. He said, please don't send me back there. Then they were gone. I never saw him again. What did the woman look like? Patrick leaned forward. Any details? Tall, dark hair pulled back real tight, and a mark on her face, like a birthmark or scar, right here. Lila touched her jaw near her ear. Victor spun from the window so fast he nearly toppled a lamp. What did you say? A mark on her jaw. Victor? Patrick's tone sharpened. What is it? There was a woman at the marina the day Luke disappeared, Victor said slowly. Seasonal staff, new. She kept hovering near the boat. She had a port wine birthmark right there. He mirrored Lila's gesture along his jaw. Do you remember her name? No, she left the next day, never came back. I didn't pay attention. He didn't finish. Grief had swallowed everything then. Patrick stood, jaw tightening. I'll pull old files, employee records. If we can identify her, we'll have a lead. Do it, Victor said. Whatever it takes. Patrick left, promising to call. Monica and Lila stayed as Victor sank back into his chair, like gravity had increased. Thank you, he said to Lila eventually, for being brave enough to speak when everyone wanted you quiet, for telling the truth. I just want Noah to be okay, she murmured. He was my friend. He was always sad. I want him to be home. Victor's eyes glossed with tears. So do I. 2 days later, Patrick returned to Langford Manor wearing an expression that made Victor's stomach clench. The files are gone, he said without preamble. Every scrap related to Luke's case. Physical records taken from my storage unit. Digital backups deleted. Someone scrubbed them. Victor stared. That's impossible. Should be, Patrick replied. Multiple redundancies, encrypted cloud storage, locks. Someone really wanted them erased. Then someone never wanted the truth about my son found, Victor said quietly. The men exchanged a look and reached the same horrifying conclusion. This hadn't been a tragic accident. It had been a cover-up maintained for 11 years. I still have contacts, Patrick said. People who might remember details even without files. I'll start asking questions. But you need to understand, if someone went this far, they won't like us stirring things up. I don't care, Victor answered. Turn over every stone. After Patrick left, Victor sat alone beneath his son's portrait. His mind kept circling back to Lila's words, the gray uniformed woman, the birthmark, the plea. Don't send me back there. Back where? Where had his son been taken? Who had kept him? And why convince Victor he was dead while keeping him alive someplace cold and lonely? He pulled up a contact he hadn't dialed in 12 years. Veronica Langford, his older sister. They'd fought bitterly before Luke vanished, over inheritance, legacy, control. She'd cut him off, moved away, skipped the funeral. He'd resented her absence, but now suspicion wormed through old memories like rot. Veronica had used private staff constantly, knew his schedules, properties, habits. She'd despised him inheriting the majority of their father's fortune. Despised him enough to destroy him? His thumb hovered over call, then retreated. Not yet. He needed evidence. Someone had taken his son. Someone had hidden him in institutions and shadowy places. Someone had let Victor grieve an empty grave. And Victor Langford intended to find that someone, even if it shattered his understanding of family. He made his decision at 3 a.m, the study soaked in lamplight. Luke's painted eyes seemed to demand, "What are you waiting for?" By sunrise, Victor was dressed, barking instructions into his phone. By 8, he stood outside Monica's tired apartment building, knocking so hard the door rattled. She opened it in a robe, hair wrapped, eyes puffy with sleep and worry. "Mr. Langford, what?" "We're going to the group home," he said. "Today. Now. I need you and Lila with me." Monica stared. "Sir, it's 8 a.m. Lila has school and I need to be at work by 9. "I'll call her school. And you already work for me." His voice softened but stayed urgent. "Please, Mrs. Reed, I have to see this place. I have to know if her memories are real." Something in his face, raw, desperate, convinced her. She stepped back, letting him into their living room. Lila appeared, still in pajama shorts, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Mr. Langford." "Get dressed, Lila," Monica said quietly. "We're taking a trip." An hour later, they rode in Victor's black Mercedes, City sliding past the tinted windows. Patrick sat in front, leather folder on his lap. Lila sat between her mom and Victor, hands knotted together. "I haven't been back since Mom got me out," she said softly. "I never thought I would be." Victor studied her. "Was it bad?" "Not exactly bad," Lila answered. "Just lonely. Everyone was waiting for someone to want them. Some kids left with families, some aged out, some like Noah just disappeared." She looked up. "I used to wonder where he went, if he was okay." "You're very brave," Victor said, "coming back to help me. He was my friend. I want to help him." The words slammed into Victor's chest like a punch. Riverside Haven sat on the city's edge, a 3-story brick building faded by time. Paint peeled, grass overgrew, and neglect clung to the place like fog. Victor's stomach knotted. His son had slept behind those dirty windows. A woman met them at the door, smile professional, eyes tired. "Mr. Langford, I'm Director Elaine Keller. We spoke on the phone." "Thank you for meeting us," Victor said. "We're looking for records on a particular child." She led them into a cramped office smelling of burnt coffee and paper. "You mentioned a name?" she asked, sliding into her chair. "He might have gone by Noah," Victor said. "He'd have been here about 2 years ago, age 11. Director Keller typed, eyes scanning the screen, silence stretched. Finally, she looked up, apologetic. "I'm sorry. There's no record of any boy named Noah in that time frame. In fact, very few boys that age came through then." "That's not possible," Lila blurted. "He was here. I lived with him." "I'm sure you remember someone, dear," Keller said in a soothing, patronizing tone. "But children's memories can blur. Perhaps it was another facility, another year." Monica squeezed Lila's shoulder. Victor recognized the same polished evasiveness he'd heard from lawyers and executives trying to hide problems. "May we look around?" he asked. "Perhaps seeing the rooms will help jog memories." Keller hesitated just long enough to be suspicious. "I suppose that's acceptable. Our children are in lessons and we prefer minimal disruption." "We'll be quick, quiet," Patrick promised. They followed her upstairs into a narrow hallway lined with doors. Beige walls, scuffed linoleum, air heavy with disinfectant. Lila moved ahead, steps growing surer. She stopped near the end. "This was my room, and Noah's was—" She crossed to the next door. "Right here." "That room's currently empty," Keller said quickly. "Between residents." "We'd like to see it." The director unlocked the door with a jangling key ring. Inside, a narrow bed with a thin mattress, a small dresser, a single window facing a cracked parking lot. Bare walls, except for nail holes where posters once hung. Lila went straight to the dresser, tugged open the bottom drawer, pushed aside folded blankets and reached into the far back corner. Her hand emerged holding a small wooden sailboat, paint chipped, white and blue with a red stripe. Victor's legs nearly buckled. He leaned on the wall, breath coming shallow. Patrick grabbed his arm. "That's Luke's boat," Victor whispered. "I carved it when he was 6. He took it everywhere. They told me it was in wreckage." He turned on Keller, voice suddenly cold steel. "How do you explain this?" I don't know how that got there," she stammered. Anyone didn't hide it," Lila interrupted. "Noah did. He showed me this exact spot. He called it his treasure stash. The other kids tried to steal his things. Keller's face blanched. "Mr. Langford, I assure you—" "Don't," Victor cut in. "Don't lie again. This proves my son stayed here. Either your records are wrong or someone erased them." Before she could answer, a lanky teen appeared in the doorway, maybe 17. Volunteer badge crooked on his shirt. His gaze flicked over the tense adults, then landed on Lila. "I remember you," he said quietly. "You're Lila, right? You left a couple years ago." "Yeah," she said. "Do you remember Noah?" The boy nodded. "The quiet kid, always drawing boats. He was here off and on. They'd bring him late at night, then he'd vanish." He glanced nervously at Keller. "Always thought it was weird." "That's enough, Miguel," Keller snapped. "Back to your duties." Miguel pulled a folded paper from his pocket first. "Another volunteer told me to give this to you if you came back." He handed it to Lila. "She left months ago. Said if anyone asked about Noah, they should know about the night van." "Miguel," Keller barked, "that's inappropriate." "What night van?" Victor demanded. Miguel backed away, regret flickering. "I don't know everything," he said. "But there was this unmarked van moving kids between places late at night. Didn't look official. Noah was always one of the ones they took. He disappeared down the hall before questions flew." Keller's face flushed from pale to angry red. "If you plan to accuse us of wrongdoing, you'll need to leave and return with proper legal paperwork." "Fine," Victor said. "But I'm not leaving until I see every room." "You can't." "I can. Or I call the police and report obstruction in a potential trafficking investigation." The word detonated in the stale air. Keller's shoulders sagged. She sank into her chair. "There's a storage room in the basement, old records, things we never digitized. You can look there if you insist." The basement was damp concrete, flickering fluorescent lights, and mildew. They followed Keller to a door near the boiler. "I haven't been in here for months," she muttered. The lock clicked. Victor flipped the lights. The room was packed. Boxes, file cabinets, plastic bins. Personal items sat everywhere. Toys, a row of tiny shoes, clothes on a rack. And taped across the walls were drawings, hundreds. Most showed boats on water, harbors, ships with billowing sails. Lila gasped. "These are Noah's." Patrick dug into boxes, Monica helping. Victor stepped to the drawings, fingers trembling, recognizing his son's careful lines, the tiny circled L signature. A faint tapping echoed somewhere above them. 3 slow knocks, 2 quick, 3 slow again. Lila froze. That was their old code. She followed the sound hours later at Langford Manor, pressed a seam in the wallpaper, then a hand clamped over her mouth. She kicked and twisted, bare feet scraping the floor, fingernails digging into the arm across her chest. "Quit struggling," a voice hissed in her ear. "I'm trying to help you." The hand dropped away, and Lila spun to face a young maid. The woman wore a Langford uniform, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, fear shining in her eyes. "Who are you?" Lila demanded, voice trembling. "Rosa," she said quickly, "and you need to get back in your room. Now! These walls aren't safe." "What do you mean? What's behind that panel?" Lila insisted. Rosa glanced nervously up and down the hallway. "Old service passages. They snake through the whole estate. Most haven't been used in decades. But lately, someone's been moving through them. You don't want to be out here when they do." "Who's using them?" Lila pressed. Rosa shook her head. I don't know. I just know weird things started after you and your mom showed up. Doors unlocked themselves. Security videos went missing. And there've been noises in the walls at night. She grabbed Lila's arm and tugged her toward the guest room. Please, just stay inside. Keep your door locked. And don't trust anyone. Do you know anything about Noah, about Mr. Langford's son? Rosa's face drained. I don't know anything, and neither should you if you want to live. She hurried away before Lila could ask more, disappearing around the corner like she regretted even speaking. Lila returned to her room, but sleep never came. She lay awake listening to the mansion. Breathe, pipes, distant footsteps, shifting wood. Around 3 a.m, she heard it again, the tapping. Slower now, heavy and desperate. 3 soft knocks, 2 quick, 3 soft. The exact pattern she and Noah had used through the orphanage walls. Someone inside the house knew their secret code. Someone was in the walls trying to reach her. The next morning, Victor met Patrick in the study. The investigator spread new documents across the desk, face grim. I tracked her down, Patrick said. Veronica owns a private compound 2 hours away, hidden behind a shell company. The place is a fortress. High walls, electronic gates, cameras everywhere. Victor's throat tightened. Is Nate there? I can't prove that yet, Patrick admitted. But there's more. He slid over a photo of Veronica now, mid-40s, elegant, eyes like ice. And look who's on her payroll. The next image showed the same woman from the marina, the one with the wine-colored birthmark on her jaw, leaving Veronica's estate carrying a briefcase. Her name's Dana Ruiz, Patrick said. She's still working for your sister. That means Veronica has been actively hiding Nate this whole time. And if she ordered the break-in at Monica's place, she's more ruthless than we thought. Victor's hands curled into fists. I want eyes on that property. Every gate, every road, every vehicle. I've already started, Patrick said. But we need to move carefully. If Veronica senses we're closing in, a crash echoed somewhere in the house, followed by a scream. Both men bolted toward the sound, hearts racing, instincts kicking in. They reached the guest wing to find Monica in the hallway outside Lila's room, one hand over her mouth, staring at the floor. A folded note lay just inside the threshold, clearly pushed under the door. Victor knelt to read it. In precise, tidy handwriting, it said, "You were not meant to remember him. Stay quiet if you want to stay alive. A friend." Lila stood behind her mother, face chalk white. "It was there when I woke up," she whispered. Victor lifted the note carefully, anger tightening his jaw. "Someone in this house works for Veronica," he said. "Someone with access to the guest wing." He looked at Patrick. "Change every security code. Run background checks on anyone hired this year. I want our traitor." "Sir," Lila said quietly, "there's more." She told them about the hidden panel, Rosa's warning, the tapping pattern in the middle of the night. With each detail, Victor's expression hardened. "Show me," he said, voice leaving no room for argument. They returned to the hallway where Lila had found the seam in the wallpaper. In daylight, it was almost invisible, just the faintest line. Victor pressed his palm against it, feeling the panel shift. He called security, and together they pried it open. Behind it, a narrow staircase plunged downward into darkness. A sour, stale smell drifted up. Patrick pulled a flashlight from his pocket, clicked it on, and took the lead. "Stay behind me," he warned. "Watch your step. These stairs are old." The steps emptied into a tight corridor that smelled of mildew and old plaster. Cobwebs clung to pipes overhead. Dust coated the floor. But not evenly. Footprints tracked through the grime. Cobwebs were recently disturbed. Someone had been down here. Halfway down the corridor, they found a small alcove, and Victor's breath hitched. A makeshift living area. A narrow cot with a thin blanket, food wrappers, empty water bottles, and children's drawings taped to the walls. On the cot, half hidden, sat a carved boat. "Dear God," Victor whispered, "someone's been living inside my walls." He picked up the boat with shaking fingers. It resembled the one he'd made Nate as a child, but newer, same careful style. Lila pointed to a drawing showing the outside of the mansion. A single upstairs window was marked with a dark X. "That's the study window," she said, "the one with the old portrait. My son has been here," Victor choked. "In this house, all along, and I never knew." Patrick snapped photos, collected wrappers and drawings, cataloging every detail for evidence. Victor barely noticed. His thoughts were on Veronica, her cold smile, the resentment she'd always worn like perfume. This wasn't just cruelty. It was targeted, personal devastation. "She's going to answer for this," Victor said quietly, for every night he slept on a cot instead of his bed, for every minute he spent afraid in the dark. Upstairs, security scrambled to reprogram locks and reinforce doors. Victor pulled Monica and Lila aside. "I need complete honesty," he said. "Do you feel safe staying here? Because if you don't, I can send you somewhere far away until this is finished." Monica looked at her daughter. Lila met her eyes. Something unspoken passed between them before Lila turned to Victor. "I don't want to run," she said. "I want to help find Noah, Nate. He's my friend. He needs us." "Sweetheart, it's dangerous," Monica protested. "I know," Lila said. "But leaving won't magically make us safe. Whoever took him already knows about us. They already broke into our apartment. The only way to end this is to finish it, to find him and bring him home." Victor felt something steady and strong settle in his chest. This 13-year-old had stepped into a war she never asked for and refused to back down. "Then we finish it," he said, "together. But from now on, none of you move around alone, ever." They both nodded. That night, when Lila tried again to sleep, the tapping returned. She slid out of bed, pressed her palm to the wall, and answered with their code. Whoever was inside those passages, whoever knew the pattern, was trying to talk. Lila had a terrifying, hopeful feeling. She already knew who it was. Someone who still remembered their orphanage code. Someone who believed she'd come back. Someone who'd been waiting for rescue longer than anyone should. Patrick worked straight through the night. By morning, he had what Victor needed. High-resolution satellite shots of Veronica's estate. 20 acres of manicured property wrapped in 12-foot walls topped with cameras. The house itself looked like a sleek retreat, but the security screamed bunker. "She's hiding something," Patrick said, fanning out the photos. "Nobody needs this much protection for a weekend place. Look here." He tapped an image. Same delivery truck every Tuesday and Friday, same time. Grocery company, but public records list only 3 live-in staff. "That's a lot of food for 3 people," Victor said, "unless she's feeding more than she admits." "Exactly," Patrick leaned back. "Either she's stockpiling for the apocalypse, or she's housing extra occupants she doesn't want on paper." Victor made up his mind. "We're going out there today," he said. "I want to look my sister in the eye and ask what she did to my son." "We should bring law enforcement," Patrick cautioned. "Not yet," Victor said. If we show with cops, she'll lawyer up and lock down. I want answers first. Then we bury her under every charge we can." While they plotted, Monica moved Lila to a smaller room in a different wing. Reinforced door. Windows that didn't connect to any hidden passage they'd found. Extra guards outside at night. Still, Lila feel watched. That afternoon, hunched over homework in the sitting room, she heard it again. 3. Slow taps. 2 quick. 3 slow. She dropped her pencil and pressed her ear to the wall, heart racing. Tap, 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 tap. She breathed hard, then tapped back. 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick. "Where are you?" Silence, stretched. Then faint, hesitant. Tapping replied, sounding higher up, maybe from the floor above. Lila grabbed her phone and texted her, "Mom! I hear the tapping again. It's upstairs." Monica responded instantly, "Stay put, I'm getting security." But Lila's legs were already moving. She couldn't just sit while someone, maybe Nate, was begging for contact. She cracked her door and peered into the hallway. Empty. She heard guards moving downstairs, voices echoing faintly. The tapping resumed, faster now, urgent and insistent. It was definitely coming from above, somewhere in the east wing, the off-limits side. Against every order she'd been given, Lila sprinted for the staircase. She took the steps, 2 at a time, sneakers silent on thick carpet. The east wing doors loomed ahead, their red security lights glowing. One door, though, hung slightly open, like someone had passed through in a hurry. Lila slipped through the gap. The air felt cooler here. The corridor walls were lined with older portraits, serious faces watching her. She passed the large painting of young Luke, Nate, holding his boat, and her breath clipped. At the base of the frame lay a fresh drawing, pencil on plain paper. A small boat on violent waves, sky dark, water churning. In the corner, the signature, a circled N. "Noah," she whispered, "where are you?" A sound behind her made her whirl around. Rosa stood there, but the fear was gone from her expression. Her eyes looked flat, calculating. "You should have stayed in your room," she said, voice low. "You know where he is," Lila said. "You know where Nate is." "I know a lot," Rosa replied, stepping closer. "Including that you're making everything messy. Miss Veronica had a very careful plan. You blew it apart when you recognized him and opened your mouth." "You work for her," Lila realized. "I work for whoever signs my checks," Rosa said. "Right now, that's your billionaire aunt." She pulled out her phone. "She'll want to know you're wandering where you shouldn't." Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Security burst in, followed by Monica and Victor. Rosa blanched and tried to retreat, but a guard clamped a hand around her arm. "Let go of me, I haven't done anything," she protested. "You're trespassing in a restricted area," Victor said coldly. "And I think you've done quite enough." He turned to his head of security. "Hold her. Call the police. I want her questioned about any connection to Veronica Langford." As they hauled Rosa away, still protesting, Victor crouched beside Lila. "Are you hurt?" "No, but look." She showed him the drawing. "This was just left here. Whoever drew it was here minutes ago." Victor held the paper carefully. The style matched the artwork from the orphanage perfectly. The date in the corner was today. "He's here," Victor whispered. "My son is in this house, right now." Patrick appeared in the doorway, slightly winded. "We've got an issue," he said. "Security footage from the last hour caught someone entering the passageways. Young, skinny, Maybe 13 or 14. Boy. Then the recording suddenly cuts out. He was heading toward the east wing. "Where do those tunnels lead?" Victor asked. "Everywhere," Patrick replied. "But there's a main junction behind the portrait gallery. If he wants to stay unseen, that's where he'd go," a guard added. They moved as a group through twisting halls. At a seemingly solid stretch of wall, Patrick pressed on an ornate panel. It swung inward, revealing another steep, narrow staircase. "Everyone behind me," Victor ordered. "If it's Nate, I don't want to scare him." They descended into the dim, cold air below. At the bottom, corridors branched in multiple directions, pipes and wires exposed overhead. Dust lay thick, except where fresh footprints tracked a path. Small ones. Victor followed, heart pounding so loud he could barely hear anything else. The route wound under floors and behind walls. They passed a discarded snack wrapper, a half-full plastic cup, a pencil. Then they reached another small chamber, once a storage closet. Now it held a cot, a battery lantern, and more drawings plastered everywhere. Boats, coastlines, endless water. A worn backpack sat on the bed. Inside, Victor found folded clothes, 2 paperbacks, and a wooden box. His hands shook as he lifted the lid. Inside was a creased photograph. Him and a younger boy on a sailboat, both grinning, the boy's hands on the wheel, while Victor steadied them. "That was our last trip together," Victor said, voice breaking. "The day before he disappeared. I didn't even know someone snapped this." "He kept it," Lila whispered. "All this time, he kept your picture." Footsteps echoed again, retreating deeper into the maze. "Wait," Victor shouted. "Please, I'm not here to hurt you." The footsteps only sped up. Victor broke into a run, leaving the others behind. Adrenaline and desperation pushed his 50-year-old body harder than it had moved in years. He barreled around a corner and froze. A boy stood at the end of the corridor, outlined by a shaft of light from a grated opening above. Thin, dressed in dark clothes, face shadowed. But Victor would have known that posture anywhere. "Nate," he breathed. The boy flinched. "That's not my name anymore," the child said. "Yes, it is," Victor said softly. "You're Nathaniel Langford. You're my son." "I don't have a father," the boy spit out. "She told me you didn't want me. She said you were glad I was gone." "She lied," Victor said, taking a step forward. Tears blurred his vision. "I never stopped searching. Every day for 11 years, I've carried you like a weight in my chest." "Then why didn't you find me?" Nate demanded. The question sliced straight through Victor. He sank to his knees in the dust. "Because I didn't know where to look," he said hoarsely. "Because someone I trusted made me believe you were dead. I failed you in the worst way a father can. But I'm here now, and I will never, ever let you go again." Silence stretched. Then the boy stepped into the light. It was Nate, older, too thin, with dark circles under his eyes but unmistakable. Same dark hair, same serious gaze, same faint scar through his right eyebrow. In his hand, he clutched a wooden sailboat. "Noah," Lila's voice echoed behind Victor. She'd followed despite instructions. "Is it really you?" Nate's hard expression cracked. "Lila," he whispered. "I told you someone would come. I told you he'd find me." Nate's face crumpled, the boat slipping from his grip. Victor lurched forward, closing the distance, wrapping his arms around his son as the boy sobbed into his chest. 10 years of terror, Isolation and lies poured out in those ragged cries. "I'm sorry," Victor whispered again and again. "I'm so sorry, but you're safe now. You're home." Monica arrived with Patrick and security, gently guiding Lila closer. She knelt beside the boys as Nate clutched Lila's hand. She tapped their old coat against his palm. He squeezed back like it was the only solid thing in the world. For the first time in a decade, Nathaniel Langford believed safety might be real. Reality rushed back fast. Nate was dehydrated, underfed, clearly traumatized. Victor called his personal physician, who arrived within half an hour, examining Nate in a secured guest suite. The boy allowed it, but only if Lila stayed planted at his side. "He's physically stable considering," the doctor said quietly outside. "Underweight, high anxiety, but nothing we can't address." "What about mentally?" Victor asked. "What he's endured is severe trauma," the doctor replied. "He'll need long-term therapy and a calm, predictable environment. He'll have whatever he needs," Victor promised. "Dad," Nate said from the bed, the word unfamiliar on his tongue, like a language he hadn't spoken in years. "Can we just go home? No more doors. Not right now. I just want to go home." "Whatever you want," Victor said, eyes stinging. They discharged Nate with follow-up instructions and medication. On the walk through the hospital parking lot, Nate suddenly stopped, staring at the cars and the wide, open sky. "What if she comes back?" he whispered. "What if Veronica gets out and takes me again?" Victor knelt to meet his eyes. "Listen to me. She's in jail. She's staying there. Even if every door in the world blew open, I would never let her near you again. I failed once. I will not fail you twice." Nate's eyes welled. "She said you were the one who wanted me gone," he admitted. "That you paid her to get rid of me because I caused too much trouble." His voice cracked. "She told me you were relieved when they said I died." The words shredded Victor's heart. He pulled Nate into a fierce hug. "I grieved you every day," he said. "Your room is exactly the same. I couldn't change anything because it meant accepting you were gone. You were never trouble. You were my whole world." From a few steps away, Lila and Monica watched, both wiping tears. Loretta, Monica, stepped closer and placed a hand on Victor's back. "Let's get them home," she murmured. "They need real food, real rest." They drove back to Langford Manor in thick silence. Nate sat between Victor and Lila, clutching the battered sailboat as if it anchored him. Outside the gates, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward, voices overlapping in a chaotic chorus. "Mr. Langford, is it true your son was alive all this time? Was your sister involved? How does it feel to have him back?" Security held the crowd at bay while Victor hustled Nate and Lila inside. Once the door closed, Nate froze. He stared up at the chandelier, the sweeping staircase, the polished floors. "I remember this," he said quietly. "I used to slide down that banister when you weren't looking." Victor laughed weakly. "You gave your grandmother several mild heart attacks doing that." Nate's face crumpled. "She died while I was gone, didn't she? Veronica said it was my fault, that Mom got sick because I disappeared." "No," Victor said firmly. "Your mother had cancer. It had nothing to do with you. She fought for 3 years. The whole time, she believed you were gone, but she never stopped hoping she was wrong." He cupped Nate's face. "She loved you more than anything. Don't you ever let Veronica steal that truth." They settled in the family room, where staff had laid out soup, sandwiches, tea. Nate ate cautiously at first, like he expected someone to snatch the plate away. Lila teased him gently until he took bigger bites, a small smile creeping in. Patrick arrived later with police updates. "They're charging all three," he said. "Veronica's facing kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy, the works. Mrs. Caro and Rosa are cooperating for reduced time." "What are they saying?" Victor asked, jaw tight. "That Veronica designed all of it," Patrick said. "She spent months planning the accident, had people on payroll at the marina, including Dana Ruiz. They drugged Nate before that boat trip. While everyone thought he'd fallen overboard, she already had him in a car." Nate spoke softly from the couch. "They gave me something that made everything foggy. When I woke up, we were driving away. Dana told me you'd sent me away because I was causing problems. She said you needed me gone." Victor's fists clenched. Veronica bounced him between safe houses, institutions, and homes like Riverside. Patrick continued. "Fake names, forged records, payoffs. Her end game was either forcing you out of the company or proving you were too broken to run it. But you never stopped digging," Monica said softly. "No." Victor shook his head. "I couldn't." "Which made her desperate," Patrick added. "When Nate started resisting, trying to escape, she had to move him more. That's how he ended up at Riverside. Then Lila recognized him, and everything unraveled," Monica said, hugging her daughter tighter. Patrick looked at Nate. "Keeping that photograph and those drawings, that took guts. They prove you never forgot who you are." Nate leaned against Lila. "Sometimes I tried to forget," he admitted, "when remembering hurt too much. But Lila helped. She told me stories about her dad and how love doesn't disappear just because someone does." He looked at Victor. "Deep down, I knew you loved me, even when I wasn't sure you were real." Victor stepped into the hallway, pressing his forehead against the wall to steady himself. Rage, grief, and relief tangled in his chest. Monica found him there, offering quiet comfort. "He's going to be okay," she said. "It'll take time, but he's tougher than she realized." "I want Veronica to suffer," Victor said. "I want her to feel every ounce she put on him." "She will," Monica replied. "Prison will gut someone like her. But what Nate needs now isn't punishment. It's stability, healing, proof he's really safe." Victor nodded. "You're right." They rejoined the kids in the family room, where Lila had coaxed Nate into watching a goofy comedy. When Nate laughed at a scene, the sound felt like hearing music after 10 years of static. 3 months later, Veronica Langford went on trial in a courthouse packed with press. Graham, Victor, sat in the front row, Patrick on one side, Monica on the other. Nate and Lila stayed home on their therapist's advice, working with a tutor instead. The prosecution laid out everything: transport logs from Riverside, forged papers, testimony from paid-off staff, audio clips of Veronica ordering the package moved. When Veronica took the stand, she showed no remorse. "I did what had to be done," she said coolly. Graham was weak, she insisted. "He'd coddle that boy into uselessness. I hardened him." "By locking him away?" the prosecutor demanded. "By terrorizing a child?" "By teaching him reality," Veronica said. "The world isn't kind. Only the ruthless survive." The jury took less than 4 hours, guilty on every count. The judge sentenced Veronica to 30 years with no parole. Mrs. Caro got 15. Rosa received 10. As they led Veronica away, she shot Victor a final, flat look, calculating, not contrite. Outside, reporters swarmed. Victor had prepared a scripted statement, But when microphones thrust toward him, he spoke from his gut. 10 years ago, my son vanished, he said. I thought he'd drowned. I buried an empty coffin. But a brave 13-year-old recognized him in a painting and refused to stay silent. Because of her, my son is home. He looked straight into the cameras. Lila Reed didn't owe us anything. Telling the truth made her life more dangerous. She chose courage anyway. She's the real hero here. The clip played on every major network. Overnight, Lila became a national symbol of speaking up. Interviews, school invitations, awards offers poured in. Loretta worried, but Lila handled it quietly. When reporters called, she politely declined most requests. When her school offered a giant assembly, she only agreed if they promised not to make it a circus. I just want normal, she told Monica. I want homework and dumb cafeteria food, and to hang out with Nate without cameras following us. Eventually, the media storm moved on. Other scandals pushed the Langford saga off the front page, which suited them perfectly. They needed space, privacy, and routine more than applause. Victor turned a rarely used sitting room into a cozy therapy space. There, twice a week, Nate and Lila met with Dr. Lauren Chen, sometimes together, sometimes apart. Dr. Chen helped Nate name the things he'd been through, gave his nightmares shape. She taught him grounding techniques for panic, helped him unlearn Veronica's lies. The nightmares didn't vanish overnight. Some nights, Victor still woke to muffled crying, rushing in to find Nate shaking, dreaming of dark rooms and cold water. Victor would sit beside him, hand on his shoulder, repeating, "You're home. You're safe. Look around. This is your room. No one's taking you anywhere." Little by little, the dreams came less often, and the peaceful nights stretched longer between them. Good moments began to outnumber bad ones, great moments even. One morning, Nate walked into Victor's office and asked, voice small, "Can we go sailing again? Just us?" Victor's eyes burned, but he smiled. "Yeah, we can." They went to a quiet lake, rented a modest sailboat, and pushed off into calm water. Nate's hands shook at first when he touched the ropes, flashes of that accident threatening to drag him under. Victor stayed patient, steady. He let Nate set the pace. No pressure, just gentle guidance. By afternoon, Nate was steering, while Victor sat beside him, offering tips. When they docked, Nate grinned, cheeks flushed. "I thought I'd be terrified," he admitted. "But I wasn't, because you were there." Victor pulled him into a hug. "I'll always be there." Monica officially accepted Victor's offer to manage the household, with a salary that made her eyes widen. But it wasn't just about money. It meant stability for Lila and a say in how the house ran. "I need you to understand," Victor told her. "You're not just staff. You and Lila, your family. I can't ever repay what you've done." "You don't owe us," Monica said. "We did what anybody should." "Most wouldn't," Victor replied. "That's why you belong here." Nate and Lila became inseparable. They studied at the big library table, explored the grounds, and spent hours in the art studio Victor set up for them. Nate kept drawing boats, but now they sailed toward sunrise instead of storms. 6 months after the trial, Victor commissioned a new portrait. The artist practically moved into the manor, sketching in different lights, capturing subtle expressions. When the canvas was finally done, Victor gathered Monica, Nate, and Lila in the gallery. The painting showed Nate and Lila standing on a small dock, the familiar wooden sailboat held between them. Nate looked older than the boy from the original portrait, stronger, more grounded. Lila's hand rested on his shoulder, both of them smiling toward something unseen. Behind them, water stretched out, not black and menacing, but bright, sparkling under sunlight. At the bottom, a brass plate read, "The children who found each other." "It's perfect," Nate whispered. They hung it front and center, where everyone entering the house could see. No longer hidden in a private study, no longer a memorial to grief, but a monument to survival and connection. That evening, the four of them ate dinner in the smaller dining room overlooking the gardens. No formality, just pasta and garlic bread. They talked about school, therapy, a weekend movie marathon. At one point, Nate looked around the table thoughtfully. "Is this what normal families do?" he asked. Victor chuckled. "I think so. But honestly, I don't know if any family is truly normal." "I like this version then," Nate decided. Lila raised her glass of orange juice. "To our weird, not normal family," she said. They all clinked glass, even Monica, who'd once worried about overstepping. Now, sitting there, she knew she belonged. Later, after the kids went upstairs, Victor stood alone in the portrait gallery, studying the two images, the sorrowful child he'd lost and the resilient teenager he'd gotten back. Monica joined him, handing over a steaming mug of tea. "You did good," she said softly. "We did," he corrected. "You, Lila, Patrick, all of us." They sipped tea in comfortable silence, moonlight streaking across polished floors. Outside, security walked their rounds. Inside, for the first time in years, all felt still. The nightmare had finally loosened its grip. The story had been dragged into daylight, and justice, imperfect but real, had landed where it needed to. A family ripped apart by greed was stitching itself back together, one small, ordinary day at a time. Nate was home, not just physically inside four familiar walls, but emotionally, spiritually. He was learning that home wasn't just a place. It was people who refused to let you vanish. He bore scars, but they no longer defined him. He was Nathaniel Langford, Nate, a son, a friend, an artist, a boy who'd survived unthinkable things and still somehow found room in his heart for trust. That night, he placed his old wooden sailboat on the nightstand beside his bed. It had carried him through so many dark places, a tiny relic of his father's love that Veronica never managed to destroy. Tomorrow, Victor had promised, they'd carve a new one together in the workshop, a fresh start shaped from solid wood. But tonight, the old boat was enough. It reminded him of everything he'd endured and everything he'd reclaimed. He climbed under the covers in his own bed, in his own room, with the door closed but not locked for once. He could hear faint, comforting sounds, the distant murmur of staff, the wind brushing the windows, Lila's soft music playing down the hall. No footsteps in hidden corridors, no tapping for rescue, just a house settling into peace. Nate closed his eyes, and, for the first time in 10 years, sleep came without terror chasing behind it. No dark water, no locked rooms, just dreams of open lakes and sunny docks, and a father's hand steady on his shoulder. Because deep down, he knew something he'd never fully believed before. When he woke up, Victor would still be there. Lila would still be there. He wasn't a forgotten ghost in the walls anymore. He was loved, chosen, and home. If someone you loved vanished, and everyone swore they were gone forever, would you keep believing, or bury hope to stop the hurt? If this story grabbed your heart, tap that like button and subscribe for more tales of courage, truth, and the families we fight to save. When the official story feels too neat, trust the unease. If you've lived past 65, you've seen this country dress hard truths in tidy language. Folks call it closure, moving on, for the best. But sometimes the official story is just a polished lid on something rotten. Monica Reed knew how wealthy homes work. She'd scrubbed enough marble floors to understand the unspoken rule. Be invisible. Don't ask about the locked doors. Don't look too long at the family photos. Don't act like you belong. That's how you keep a job. That's how you feed your kid. And for a while it worked, until Lila wandered into that study and saw a portrait that didn't just feel sad, it felt wrong. A boy in a navy suit clutching a little wooden sailboat. Rich, painted in gold and grief. But Lila didn't see a memorial. She saw Noah, the quiet kid from a group home who drew boats like his life depended on it, who woke up choking from nightmares about cold water, who kept saying his father promised to find him. And when she said it out loud, you could practically hear the air change. Victor Langford's face drained, his hands trembling, like a man who'd been holding himself together with thread. That moment carries a lesson older Americans understand in their bones. A neat story doesn't always mean a true story. People with power can buy silence, rewrite records, and call it tragic fate. They can bury an empty coffin and convince the world the loss is final. But the body remembers. The gut remembers. And sometimes a child, untrained in polite denial, sees the thing everyone else has been trained not to see. So if your spirit ever catches on something that doesn't add up, an accident that feels staged, a vanished file, a warning that sounds rehearsed, don't ignore it just because it's inconvenient. Unease is not proof, but it's often the first alarm bell God gives you. In the Langford story, that alarm bell was a 13-year-old girl brave enough to point at a painting and say, "I know him." Silence protects the powerful, not the innocent. Many of us were raised to mind our business. Don't make trouble. Don't embarrass the family. Don't get involved. That advice kept a lot of people safe in hard decades, especially women, working folks, and anyone living paycheck to paycheck. But it also let too many wolves keep their teeth hidden. Look at how quickly the system tried to hush Monica and Lila. The head housekeeper's tone wasn't just rude, it was discipline. Keep her away. Keep her mouth shut. That wasn't about manners. That was about control. Because once a truth gets spoken in the wrong room, the whole house can start shaking. Then the signs turned sharper. Missing security footage, erased records. A private investigator's files scrubbed clean, like someone had a mop in one hand and a checkbook in the other. And finally, the note slid under Lila's door. Stay quiet if you want to stay alive. That's not drama for drama's sake. That's how intimidation works in real life. The threat isn't always a weapon. Sometimes it's a whisper, a job on the line, a reputation, a frightening little message that says we know where you sleep. And yet, silence is exactly what allowed Veronica's cruelty to stretch out for 11 years, moving a child through hidden corridors, night vans, fake names, and paid-off staff. If no one speaks, the lie becomes history. If no one challenges it, evil starts to look like normal procedure. For older viewers, this lesson hits close because many of you have watched the cost of silence up close. Families hiding abuse, workplaces covering up injuries, institutions handling things internally until somebody's life gets destroyed. In the Langford home, it took an unlikely trio to break the spell. A working mother with nothing to spare, a girl with a stubborn conscience, and a father finally willing to admit he might have been fooled. Courage doesn't always look like a grand speech. Sometimes it looks like a kid saying, with a shaking voice, "I'm not lying." Sometimes it looks like Monica refusing to let a rich woman label her daughter confused. Sometimes it looks like continuing to ask questions, even when the powerful start acting nervous. Healing isn't a victory lap. It's a long, gentle return. When Nate is finally found in the passageways, thin, guarded, clutching that wooden sailboat like a life preserver, it would be easy to end the story there and call it a happy ending. But if you've lived long enough, you know real life doesn't wrap trauma up with a ribbon. Nate didn't come home as the same boy who disappeared. He came home with dark circles under his eyes, a body worn down by fear, and a mind trained to expect betrayal. He spit out, "I don't have a father," because he'd been fed a lie so long it started to feel like truth. And Victor, desperate, guilty, and heartbroken, did something many older men were never taught to do. He got on his knees and apologized. No excuses, no pride. Just a father admitting, "I failed you." That's the third lesson. Love is not just rescue. It's repair. And repair is slow. It's therapy twice a week. It's steady meals. It's leaving a door closed but not locked because locked doors feel like captivity. It's waking up to nightmares and repeating, "You're home! Look around!" It's letting a boy relearn trust without demanding gratitude on a schedule. And there's something else, something tender that older hearts will recognize. The way Lila becomes an anchor. Not a savior, not a replacement parent, just a friend who remembered him when the world pretended he was dead. A simple tapping code from a group home becomes a bridge back to humanity. That's not small. That's sacred. In the end, the new portrait, Nate and Lila, standing in sunlight with that boat between them, matters because it tells the truth. Survival isn't glamorous. It's ordinary days after extraordinary pain. It's a family learning how to be not normal together and deciding that's okay. The question that haunts and the hope that answers. If someone you loved vanished and everyone swore they were gone forever, would you keep believing or bury hope to stop the hurt? If you're older, you may have buried hope before, just to get through the day. No shame in that. But this story reminds us, sometimes hope is not a feeling. It's a decision, a refusal to let the powerful write the final chapter, a willingness to speak the truth even when your voice shakes, and sometimes, against all odds, the missing one comes home. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were Victor, would you have kept digging after 11 years, or would you have accepted the official story just to survive the grief? And if you were Monica, would you risk your job to protect a truth no one wanted spoken out loud? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and your stories matter more than you know. If this kind of real, hard-earned hope speaks to you, please tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. Who in your life taught you to keep believing?